Hello and welcome, friends, to our Secular Buddhist Essentials class. My name is Venerable Tarpa. We're back once again on a lovely Sunday. This is the last Sunday of May, and we're having our retreat today, our online observance retreat. We've been practicing all day together, just having a lovely, lovely time. And now we're getting back to our Sunday class. Today's a special class. We're going to be learning about rebirth. And I think I came up with a really nice presentation for everybody, quite nuanced for a secular Buddhist audience. So, with that said, how about if I dive in here? And there's a few caveats that I wanted to read, and then kind of get into the textbook presentation of it for everybody. I'm going to share the textbook presentation, share some of the traditional views, and then I'm going to share the secular Buddhist views presentation of it a little later in the teaching. So I hope you enjoy it. Within secular Buddhism, the validity and acceptance of rebirth is often contested, contested topic, with opinions on both sides of the debate. As a secular Buddhist teacher, I believe it's inappropriate for me to omit aspects of the Buddhist teachings that I may not personally accept. Instead, I believe my duty lies in properly presenting the Buddhist teachings as unadulterated as possible, giving you, my audience, the freedom to choose what you wish to believe. And although many of our members may not hold a belief in rebirth, there is no doubt that the Buddha did. In fact, you can hardly find a sutra which rebirth is not referenced. But that doesn't mean that we have to believe in it. As previously mentioned, SBT refrains from telling others what to do, what to think, or what to believe. Equally, we don't presume to offer a definitive interpretation of the Buddhist teachings. Instead, we see our objective as to share a carefully considered perspective in which to guide and support secular Buddhist practitioners on their path to awakening. To share an accurate yet accessible account of the Buddhist teachings so students can decide for themselves what's most fruitful and productive for their paths. The Buddha shared that his teachings were intended as a means of practice, not as a final or absolute doctrine to cling to. So, with that said, we encourage and support each of you to explore the topic and decide for yourselves if such a belief aids in your own awakening. We'll start off with the concept of rebirth and reincarnation. So the two topics are shared by most Indian religions and pertaining to the concept that death is not the end of a person's existence, but instead our life force at the time of death travels or transmigrates into a womb and is reborn and begins a new life. This process of rebirth operates in dependence upon one's accumulated merit or karma, with virtuous karmic imprints leading to higher or preferred rebirth, and non-virtuous karmic imprints leading to lower or unfavorable rebirth. Traditional presentations assert that one can take rebirth in many forms of beings and also into many realms of existence. Although rebirth and reincarnation are often seen as synonymous, there is a subtle yet important difference pertaining to what is exactly reborn. Both Hinduism and Jainism share a belief in reincarnation, the idea of a permanent, unchanging self, soul, or identity that after death transmigrates from one body to the next, changing bodies as if changing clothes. Contrary to this, the Buddha, who rejected the existence of a soul or any permanent, unchanging essence, asserted rebirth, which is the reestablishment of one's subtle stream of consciousness within a new mind and body. The major difference in these two models is that which is reborn, with the passing and loss of the previous mind and body, the conventional self or identity that we commonly believe to be ourselves is also lost. So to clarify, in reincarnation, it's you, a self, a soul, an identity that is reborn. Whereas in rebirth, that which we commonly believe to be ourselves, a sense of self or identity, passes away with the mind and body and is lost. And it's only our subtle stream of consciousness that's reborn. The Buddhist idea of rebirth can be understood as similar to a seed being reestablished in a new field. In this analogy, the seed represents a single mind moment of subtle consciousness. So last week we learned all about the mind. We learned about the mind moments, consciousness, and we talked about these mind moments, right? Being that our our experience is made up of these little mind moments, and they stream together so quickly it appears that it's a single conscious stream. Um, a mind moment is imbued with subtle mental and karmic imprints, tendencies, and impressions. This mind moment seed is then established in a new embryo and a new life begins. Just to review, again, I think I mentioned this. Um, let's say it again. We define mind moments as transitory mind events lasting only a fraction of a second. But before passing away, it transmits its entirety of its knowledge, understanding, and experience to its next successor, and that successor to its successor, creating a sense of a continuous stream of consciousness extending across time and across lives. So, in the case of rebirth, as the last mind moment of the previous life ends, the very next, what they call a linking mind moment, is established in another womb and once again begins the birth process. Any questions about that? Do you guys get you understand the difference between reincarnation and rebirth? Pretty clear, huh? Lovely. Okay, I'm going to move on. Um, I wanted to talk about what's lost at death. So, as one subtle stream of consciousness is reestablished within a new mind and body, the conventional identity that we commonly believe to be ourselves passes away and is lost at death, along with the gross aggregates of mind and body. However, Buddhism Buddhists believe that the subtle stream of consciousness that is reestablished isn't a blank slate, but instead it contains subtle mental and karmic imprints, tendencies, and impressions from prior lives. These can these are drives, habits, mental and emotional characteristics, passions, and even abilities. Say, for example, you were passionate about playing the piano in one lifetime, as I was. I was a piano player before I became a monk. Although the skill and knowledge of playing is lost at death, imprints or residue of the experience may remain, possibly manifesting as an attraction to the instrument or the ability to learn it quickly, what we would call talent. I often say that what's reborn is the momentum or flavor of one's life. Some Mahayana traditions believe in an in between state between death and rebirth, where the stream of consciousness can abide before being reestablished in the womb. And in many cases, it can be up to 49 days. So the story goes. This is a prominent belief in Tibetan Buddhism, which offers elaborate descriptions of such states. Other traditions assert a very brief in between state or period, while still others assert the process of rebirth happening instantaneous, like a fire spark jumping from one body to the next. Tibetan Buddhism has a very elaborate account, especially the Nyingma school, of rebirth. Rebirth, they call it the bardo, the in-between state of rebirth. And a lot of that comes from their original or indigenous Burn religion, the indigenous religion before Buddhism was there. Though you can find traces of the idea of an in between state in the early sutras, it was just never really elaborated upon. The Again, you could just find the terms scattered here and there. Any questions about that? I know we have a lot of practitioners with us that practice Tibetan Buddhism, as I did. Okay. Captivating audience. And then we can't talk about rebirth without mentioning samsara karma and rebirth. So as we talked about in the first part of this text series, samsara is translated as wandering through or cycling, and is traditionally interpreted as cyclic existence, to be trapped in the cycle of rebirth. It's depicted as a state or quality of the mind that's pervaded by ignorance, delusion, afflictions, and suffering, said to be perpetuated by wrong views and misguided intentions. To be trapped in samsara is to be trapped within our own self generated delusions and ignorance. The traditional Buddhist view presents karma as the driving force behind rebirth and cyclic existence. Based upon the belief in karmic evolution, it's through our ethical, intentional choices that we influence the momentum or evolution of our lives, with ethical and skillful choices leading to higher or favorable rebirth, while unethical or unskillful choices lead to lower or unfavorable rebirths. For the Buddha, the aim of his teachings and path is to escape and be liberated from samsara, the cycle of rebirth. So that's always been the traditional aim, and it continues to be. It's very clear in the Buddhist teachings. What do you guys think about this more traditional view of rebirth? Is it fascinating? Namdak, please share.
I have a question. In within rebirth, things like obviously the body and mind, your personality, those don't continue with you at death. But I think, I mean, if I recall, there are some sutras where the Buddha is described as having like memories of a previous life or something like that. If memories die at death, how did he remember those things from previous lifetimes?
Great question. You know, when I wrote the piece, I was leery of going too deep into it because some of these explanations are quite intense. And maybe I'll answer it with this piece of information. So these different subtle aspects of our mind, um, though they're seen as being two aspects, active and passive. Active is Active is the mind that you're using right now, this active mind that's seeking out, all your habits are going, all your functions, mindfulness is there, attention is here. But there's also a passive aspect to those things where they're not so much initially engaged, but especially the imprints from the functions remain. This is what we talk about when we say that imprints and expressions from one lifetime are carried over. And so like what was like you mentioned, personality is lost, identity is lost, but aspects of your personality, the flavor of your life, the momentum, especially karmically, those more passive aspects of you are reserved, retained in the subconscious mind, conscious and subconscious. So there's those active aspects of you and your mind and passive aspects. The passive aspects are retained. This includes memory. So different traditions have tried to explain what you asked in different ways. Tibetan Buddhism actually claims two types of consciousness. One that's responsible for our immediate lives, and another consciousness that's responsible for all our lives. Because as you mentioned, the Buddha asserted that on enlightenment, he could remember all his past lives, right? So if they're all lost, how do we do that? The fact is that memories retained, but all of this passive mental stuff goes to the subconscious. So even now within you, according to Buddhism, the memories of your past lives are there. They're all dormant. And then as we get more advanced in our practice, especially when we get up to the level of the jhanas, a lot of these past memories are released. So that's the early sutra explanation of it, that a great deal of things in this lifetime are retained, but again, it's their passive aspect. You have to learn multiplication tables again when you're a kid. You have to learn language. So I thought that was an incredible explanation, but I thought it was a little too in depth to add it. You think I should add that to our presentation? It's important. A lot of nodding heads. Maybe squeeze it in the end notes. Dharma?
Yeah, I have a question pertaining, I guess, in a large way to like the Tulku system and stuff like that. If we have certain things that are still there, who carries that if there's no I? Like,
Sure. Well, remember that the I is part of your identity. That's part of the self, which exists. It's a function of the mind to have this concept. These things related to me are part of me, right? But that's not that's not the important aspect of rebirth or even your own existence. This subtle stream of consciousness that moves through, that's what's reborn. So memories of lifetimes can be subtly can lay dormant in the mind. The Buddha talked about it as if a person was walking from village to village and he was a different person in each village. One village he was a carpenter, another village he was a farmer. And so that kind of information is stored as memory within the subconscious. But the this active notion of you believing in the self and it's you and operating through the self in your lifetime, that active aspect is lost. So your dharma in this lifetime, and you have your job, and you're a member of SBT. But when you die, that aspect, the active aspect, is going to pass away. And when you're reborn, you're going to develop a new self, new identity with the help of your parents, who will start it all off by giving you a name, telling you what a good boy you are. And then in school, you'll learn things, you'll learn skills, you'll learn this and that. Your environment will condition you, and you'll become a different person.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. I'm still trying to figure out who or what carries that memory.
So, what carries the memory is your subtle subconscious, and it's in the passive form. You can't activate it. You can't actively go to it. It's passive, it's buried in your subconscious. That subconscious, right? That consciousness, remember the way consciousness works, it's kind of like it's all momentary, right? And
Mhm.
and they say each moment is a split second. There's something like 60 moments in the 60 seconds in 60 moments in a second. But so the subconscious and conscious, uh, they hold that passively throughout. The self, the sense of I, the identity doesn't have that capacity. That's not part of its function at all. It can't hold any of that information.
So who's to say then when they say, well, this is the 17th Karmapa, but he's no longer that same person. There's no I, and he's no longer that same person.
Well, that would be someone who's able to look into that child's mind and see that dormant memory and be able to say, oh, I see he was this last person. Now, that's not a technical explanation. That's my explanation. That would be the only way it could work. And then maybe that child, when they got older, they could start seeing those memories, experience those memories for themselves. But I would like to add that the Tibetan school is the only school that has a toku system. A toku system is a system of masters being recognized as children, reincarnate masters, recognized them. Like the Dalai Lama's, he's the 14th of the Dalai Lamas, and they're all recognized masters from other births. Helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. One more, please.
Yeah, this isn't my initial comment, but some people I've heard it said that deja vu moments could be some of those subconscious past memories when you have those really intense, like I've been here before or I've done this before, that those can be displays of that subconsciousness that you carried over.
Maybe.
hmm
It certainly could be.
yeah. My question to you is, what is your opinion? Since you were talking about like talent, what about the fact of like carrying over the karma that you've created through Dharma? Like, for example, if you're a practitioner in this lifetime and you devoted your life to studying and progressing towards awakening, you pass away. Do you believe that there's then a propensity for you to be born in a place where the Dharma will present itself to you again, or you'll have a more auspicious birth because you lived a virtuous life, those kinds of things?
Those are all asserted by all traditions of Buddhism. And when we talk about what is carried over, if you remember, we talked about mental and karmic imprints. So the idea of karma and rebirth is that this merit, this goodness that you earn in each lifetime is not lost. It creates a momentum that goes from lifetime to lifetime. This is the mechanism of purification. This is how Buddhists say that someone who exists even as an animal one day can become a Buddha. Evolution, spiritual and physical and species evolution is a part of that. So very much that is the belief. For those who believe in rebirth and those who believe in the karmic connection to rebirth. Very much so. Tarchin, please.
Um, I I've kind of struggled with the concept of rebirth for some time.
You're
Uh,
in the right place.
I think partly because it's a potentially dangerous concept in the sense of if I am driven, if my motivations are driven by this concept of rebirth, it would be very easy to fall into ego clinging because of, I'm either trying to seek a better rebirth, improve my situation in the next life, or avoid potentially suffering greater in a lower realm of existence or whatever. Um, that it's I think rebirth is just it's if not properly understood or if it is like a central driving
What's
force.
what's the danger?
I think
How does that manifest?
then you're just driven by clinging and aversion and
But how
ignorance.
does it manifest? What's
So
dangerous about that?
it would be like, oh well, I am going to help this lady across the road because I want the benefit for myself. And so then it just perpetuates this sense of separation between myself and other because I'm doing it for my own benefit as opposed to say maybe being more driven by like emptiness and recognizing that I am that lady as well.
Yeah.
She is
I don't
me.
know if I call that dangerous though. I mean,
Yeah.
there's almost like two levels, for simple people that might not be able to really understand or be able to habituate the perspective of emptiness. Maybe the first thing you mentioned of them just running around doing good deeds so they'll have a better rebirth. According to the Buddha, that is purification. I mean, even if you think you're doing it for egocentric reasons, if you feel good about the acts that you do, you're still purifying yourself. So I think some teachers would say that kind of fake it as you make it. Maybe that's at the level they're at, and they practice it on that simple level wanting to, a great example is in Asia, all the people that give lots of money to the Dharma Center, so they'll have a good rebirth and their business will flourish. Doesn't really harm too, it doesn't really harm people. Pretty good for the monastery. Um,
Yeah.
but the fact is, maybe that's just the level of some people's practice. I don't see it being dangerous. The hope is that maybe once they gain some merit, maybe they get some clarity and they can eventually evolve to the point where they can understand emptiness and practice it.
Thank you.
So I
And the
think
other,
it's okay. I
yeah,
think a lot of Westerners are really worried about ego. Like,
yeah,
well, I did this thing, but I really knew it was more for me than it was them, and I feel bad about it. And I always tell people, oh, let go of all of that stuff. Just do good in the world, regardless of whether it's tainted by you had a slight feeling it was about you. It doesn't matter. Fake it till you make it. That goes away, by the way. Like new practitioners are always concerned about that. And then very quickly, they never mention it again. So it's just something that we go through, and it actually shows some ethics on their part, doesn't it? That they're actually looking at good deeds and realizing that they're not wholeheartedly invested. That shows accountability on their part. So yeah, I think that they work their way through that pretty easily. Great question, Tarchin. Thank you. Wangmo?
No, I was just going to say, I think that's why it's really important to couple it with compassion. Because then if you're doing, there's nothing wrong with doing something for your own benefit, but when you have compassion, your real concern is others. And it kind of
But
takes
you
away
get the
from that.
same problem with both qualities. People come to me with both. They say, I'm
Really?
being compassionate, but I really know it's for me that I'm being, yeah, it's kind of the same ethical dilemma. And I always tell people, just don't worry about it. Go out, do good. Don't overthink it. That's overthinking it. That goes away, and more it develops into really authentic compassion, really authentic. Because remember, compassion is one of the aspects of gaining merit as well. You know. Oh, so many brilliant questions. And I'm suspicious of that David Williamson just sitting there. I know he's got a big question written down somewhere. He's just waiting to pry. Okay, how about we move on to the secular Buddhist view? So, secular Buddhism is famously known for its rejection of rebirth, which is not entirely correct. Previously, we shared that SBT understands secular Buddhism not as a fixed prescribed ideology, but instead as a spectrum of nuanced perspectives, ranging from more traditional Buddhist views at one end to fully secular views at the other. In the past, some teachers with strong secular views have challenged the Buddhist world by denying rebirth uh, and other core Buddhist elements. But to be fair, in most of these cases, they weren't outright rejections, but merely teachers questioning the validity of such claims. Unfortunately, this was seen as an act of heresy by the greater Buddhist community, and to this day continues to stigmatize secular Buddhism as a view that denies rebirth, which is inaccurate. As mentioned, secular Buddhism doesn't hold a doctrine that all of its members are asked to follow. Views and beliefs are left to the practitioner to determine for themselves what feels true to them. The fact is, for many secular Buddhists, a belief or rejection in rebirth doesn't define us. Many secular Buddhists simply accept rebirth as a reasonable hypothesis, trusting that the Buddha may have known something that they didn't. Others choose to interpret rebirth metaphorically, seeing rebirth as the continual moment to moment renewal of the body and mind in each and every moment. While others propose that the Buddha may have simply been teaching skillfully by utilizing the beliefs and cultural framework of his time. In my own investigation, I haven't found any convincing evidence either for or against rebirth. Therefore, the topic has to remain in the realm of belief. Again, we have to clarify the crucial difference between believing something to be true and knowing something to be true. Belief can be supported by evidence, but it's not conclusively known to be true, whereas knowing is conclusively proven true by evidence. In summary, in Buddhism, rebirth is not the transmigration of a self, soul, identity after death, but instead it's the reestablishment of one's subtle stream of consciousness within a new mind and body, asserting that conventional identity that we commonly believe to be ourselves passes away and is lost at death, along with the gross aggregates of mind and body. So in the future, I'll tag that as the active components of those it falls away. Meaning, oh, I think I do it here. Meaning the active stream of awareness that you're currently experiencing is lost at death. Oh, I must have added that at the last minute. But the passive undercurrent of your subtle stream of consciousness continues and is reborn, reestablished in another mind and body. The Buddhist idea of rebirth can be understood as similar to a seed being established in a new field. This subtle conscious seed, seed of consciousness that is established is not a person, soul, or entity, but instead It's a process of a continuous stream of mind moments that function as a carrier of subtle mental and karmic imprints, tendencies, and impressions. In the traditional Buddhist view, karma is seen as the driving force behind rebirth and cyclic existence, with liberation from cyclic existence the primary aim. Whereas in a secular Buddhist context, because of the lack of substantial evidence, many remain skeptical of the metaphysical claim of rebirth and choose to ignore or hold an agnostic view on the topic, focusing instead on aspects of the Buddhist teachings they believe can more directly benefit their awakening. So I like to end each one of these topics with, well, how does this benefit my life, Tarpa? For traditional Buddhists who see escaping from cyclic existence as the primary aim of their practice, clearly a belief and understanding of rebirth is vital to their path. For those on the secular side of the spectrum, focused on liberation within a single lifetime, rebirth is inconsequential. However, for those who find themselves somewhere in between, I'm sorry, one second. For those that find themselves somewhere in between the traditional view and the secular view, remarkably, both aims are reached in the same manner, meaning the path and practice for liberating ourselves from cyclic existence is the very same path and practice for liberating ourselves from suffering within a single lifetime. Through the cultivation of the threefold path, the development of higher understanding, higher virtue, and higher mental states, we gain a greater and greater potential to awaken in this lifetime and future lives. So by focusing on liberation within this lifetime, you are at the same time securing favorable future rebirths, if such a thing exists. What a clever presentation. Did you like it? Yeah, good. Let the questions begin. So, pretty intense subject, isn't it? It was a lot to cover, huh? Miss Wama, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. So, do you don't think that like near-death experiences or like children who can remember things of past life are proof of rebirth? Like I just watched this video, a documentary the other day about a woman from 1970. She had surgery, and the surgery they did, they had to stop her brain from working for like 4 minutes. And she was able to afterwards describe to them everything that was done to her in that 4 minutes. And doctors today are still trying to argue about how that was possible. So it's very clear that our consciousness is outside of ourselves and that it's something that doesn't die when this body dies, right? So doesn't rebirth make complete sense?
If that story is true,
Hmm.
so, as a philosopher and as a Buddhist, I'm very cautious about stories. Tibetan Buddhism, I was so on board. I was going to be a great tantrika master. I had bells and whistles and rings on my toes, and I spent 20 years uh, scouring the Himalayas and all those Buddhist countries about those stories that I heard, and I found that in so many cases that they seem to be stories. So first of all, I'm cautious about that, and if they are true, why haven't they come to the front as actual evidence? Uh, there's some fabulous books like that, and people send them to me all the time. I've read a dozen of them, and there's always people that refute them afterwards, that there was something that maybe the reporting wasn't done accurately. So I'm suspicious of those books. I think that if those accounts were true, clearly science couldn't ignore that. And there would be, major research going on. So I'm agnostic about some of that, and I'm waiting to see the results. I'm open to it. One thing I didn't get into, as you noticed in the article, was my own personal views. Um, I have a loose belief in rebirth. Um, Mostly not so much that I think it's real, more it's a aspect of deduction or subtraction out of all the hypotheses of what happens when we pass away. Rebirth sounds pretty good to me. Secondly, I have the Buddha's work has proven to me as being pretty amazing and accurate. But then again, there's so much of Buddhism that I don't believe in as a secular Buddhist. I don't believe in deities and realms of existence and um, magical supernatural beings. The list goes on and on and on. So in the end, I have to be agnostic about it. And as I talked about, the idea is if there is a rebirth, having a favorable rebirth is the same thing, the same function as preparing for it as it is to have a good life in this lifetime. So I do have a loose belief in it, but very cautious of the stories. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Patrick asked, would I still practice secular Buddhism if rebirth was found not to be true? Oh, yeah. Whether rebirth is true or not, I'm agnostic about it. It doesn't matter either way. Actually, I had a conversation with others, like Stephen Batchelor in his manifesto. I think the first line, the 10 things that make you a secular Buddhist, is that you only practice for this lifetime and no others. And it's like, well, do I have to believe that to be a member of the organization? So I didn't like that aspect of it. Um, but I think that that's probably the lowest criteria. I mean, when we talk about these deities or mystical beings, realms of existence, I mean, there's some really crazy mystical stuff that's in Buddhism. And rebirth is a pretty subtle one, if you ask me. I mean, being born once, as Soter, the philosopher, said, being born once isn't is proven. Is being born twice that much of a stretch? So yeah, I don't think secular Buddhists have to not believe in the same things. It's up to you to choose what it is, but it's just being a secular Buddhist is people that have a rational approach to the teachings, who share that, who uh, who steer away from the more mystical aspects, or are more grounded in their approach. But that doesn't mean they can't believe in those things. It's up to them. We have quite a few Sangha members who have belief in all kinds of mystical things. We have no problem with that. We leave belief again up to the individual. Dharma?
So, what role does our inherent Buddha nature have in all of this? And is Buddha nature something that is unchanging? And if so, how is it different than from the Hindu concept of Brahman?
Yeah. So, well, that's probably where it originates from. So the idea of Buddha nature is quite different, and it's the idea that somehow where we have a seed of Buddha nature, we have the seed of a Buddha inside us all, and if we cultivate it and uncover it, we're already Buddhas and don't know it. That that Buddha-ness uh, can be cultivated into a Buddha. So there's a lot of problems with it. This arises only in the Mahayana. It's not a traditional view. Um, Tsongkhapa had problems with the idea. And well, first of all, they say that the The thought is that if you become a Buddha, you can't fall back into lower realms. So we were never Buddhists to begin with. And so the idea of this, Tsongkhapa believes that the potential for becoming a Buddha, which is basically just the potential for evolution, is apparent in all living things. I definitely agree with that. All sentient beings have the potential for evolution or de-evolution, if that's a word, right? It can go either way. But the concept of Buddha nature, that somehow there's a Buddha inside of us that just needs to be uncovered, isn't one that I teach. Do you understand? Should I say more about it? I find it's a strange concept.
Oh, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it probably does come from Advaita or Hinduism, kind of like the idea of a true self, a true soul that's inside of us that just needs to be uncovered. But Buddhism doesn't teach that. And it gets very close to some kind of essential essence, like Buddha nature is an essential essences, and the Buddha denies there is no essential essence there. So I think it's often kind of a dangerous topic, taking us in the wrong direction. But what do I know? Oh, Ananda, please.
Well, as long as we're talking about this, maybe you could clarify for me if my perspective on it. When I think of Buddha nature, I think of it not as an essential essence, but as the lack of an essential essence. So that emptiness is the nature of a Buddha.
I don't know about that.
Hmm.
I'd have to ponder that.
Okay.
I think that if it is that concept, we don't. It doesn't need to be. We have the concept of emptiness,
That's true.
dependent origination. Now, Buddha nature is positing there's something there. So
Mm,
I would say I don't. I wouldn't follow that line of thinking.
mm.
Buddha nature is positing something there where the Buddha said there wasn't. Oh, and that's just my own opinion. I call it as I see it. I don't pull any punches. Probably get me in trouble at some point. Somebody watching my videos. And does I was gonna say does I was gonna see who believes in rebirth or not. Maybe that's not something we want to call people out on. Uh, does the Buddhist presentation on rebirth offend or bother anyone? Or can you be comfortable, following the Buddhist path with and setting aside like key aspects? Maybe one thing we should talk about is how people lump karma in with rebirth. Some of the secular groups that reject rebirth say we reject rebirth and karma. So karma is a central facet to rebirth, no doubt about that. But as we shared in our last presentation of karma, karma is much more than that. Setting that aside and saying we don't follow rebirth, karma is volition. Karma is a mental function that's happening in your mind all the time, whether you want to believe in it or not. So, regular volition is just choices that are mundane choices that are being made that don't have much consequence. Karma is a Buddhist and Eastern word, but it represents a very, shall we say, physical, real function of the mind. I don't know if the West has a term for it. That'd be a fascinating thing to try to figure out. But remember, karma is ethical or principled volitional choice, right? So Buddhism makes the difference that a lot of our volitional choices aren't principled. They're just like, what do I want? Chocolate or vanilla ice cream. There's not much ethics or principle, while others are very principled, very ethical, right? And so Buddhism makes this clear and amazing distinction between these two kinds of volition. So that aspect of karma cannot be denied. Our brains do that. Buddhists choose to call that thing that our brains do karma, right? So karma can't be denied. Its usage can. The term can be denied. We don't want to call it that. People can interpret it in different ways. But I'm telling you what the Buddha claimed karma was. I'm not giving an interpretation. And the Buddha almost says it in the early sutras as if he's angry, like he's had to say it one too many times. He says, I tell you, monks, karma is volition. Like, hey, isn't anybody listening to me? so so yeah, karma doesn't, I don't think it stands on its own. But if you believe in rebirth, then karma is definitely the mechanism for it. And what's kind of a funny thing is some people say that karma is the actual creator of rebirth, like even initial rebirth. It all comes from karma. Karma is this universal engine. And traditionally, they say karma is the creator of the universe. And you say, well, how is that? How? Because there were no sentient beings when the universe was created. And they say, oh, from past lifetimes, the karma from beings of past lifetimes created the universe in this lifetime. So there's an answer for just about anything you ask. Did you have fun? Fascinating topic. David, not one question? You're slipping.
I thought it was a pretty balanced presentation, Tarpa.
That was my goal. That was about as good as I could get.
I thought you achieved it. It was
Yeah, thank you.
very
Thank
impressive,
you.
actually.
Thank you. So next week is going to be our last Secular Buddhist Essentials class for the spring. And I'm going to wind it up by going back to our first class and revisiting it. What is our true nature? Who are we? Now that we've learned all these things, I give a nice presentation at the beginning of this part two. But now that we've learned all these things, I want to give a deeper presentation. Then we're going to be on to our skillful living program for the summer. And then we'll get back into Secular Buddhist Essentials in the fall. And in the fall, we'll be diving into the nature of phenomena. So I'm teaching it in a kind of unique way. I start off with trying to define the subject, first defining who and what we are. And next, I'm going to talk about our phenomena and reality in the world around us. And then I'm going to talk about how we interact with it. I think it's going to be quite fascinating, right? There's a text that goes along with this class that I will post with the teaching. I think it's pretty good. Please let me know if you like it or if you find any typos in it. And besides that, tomorrow, Monday, is our last mind training program for this spring, the last class of the mind program for the spring. And it's on the six perfections. Tenzin Karma will be teaching on developing higher wisdom. That's at 1900. Yeah, right. 1900 UTC tomorrow. So a great deal of our spring programs are winding down. We're getting ready for summer. I think SBT is going to have an extraordinary summer. We're going to be moving to Asheville, doing some new programs. We're also hoping to get our Skillful Living book out. We have the program, but we want to write a book for it for the masses and have that done by the end of the summer. So lots going on. Hey, besides that, we're in the middle of one of our retreats today. So we're almost done with the retreat. We got a couple of events. In about a half an hour, we're going to have our vow purification ceremony. Everybody's invited to come. You don't have to be a vow holder to come. It's a short and very beautiful event ceremony. So feel free to come. And a little while after that, we're going to have the last event of the day, which is a loving kindness meditation and a little Sangha chat. So please, even if you haven't come to much of the retreat today, stick around and finish it with us. You'll be glad you did. Thanks everybody for coming. Let's end today's meditation with our altruistic affirmation. May all be healthy. May all be prosperous. May all be well. May all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is a source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks for joining me, friends. I had a lot of fun. See you back here in a half an hour.